is MidDays. Hour 2 of the program is live in the Element Wealth studio, relocated on this gorgeous Friday to the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. We appreciate you joining us today, and we're also welcoming now back to the Element Wealth studio. It's Senator Bart Williams. He represents District 15, which is comprised of Choctaw, Montgomery, Oktibbeha, and Webster counties. He serves as the chair of the Senate Technology Committee and the vice chair of the Senate Energy Committee. Wow, you got lots of responsibility there, Senator Williams. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. An honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we were just talking, of course, with Representative Robertson about education, and of course, even though you serve as chair of the Technology Committee, you're still a state senator, and you guys are discussing education and all the aspects of that continuously when you're in session. Lots of bills flow through related to that, and we have no reason to believe that will not be the situation in the upcoming 2025 session.
Completely agree. I think there's been good change that's occurred, and I think we'll continue to try to do that and move the needle in the right direction.
Well, we could start, could we not, Senator, with at least we have a funding formula that you and I could probably agree on what it says, how it's supposed to work.
Yep, that's for sure.
Because I'm not sure anybody in that Capitol could explain it the way it was previously written.
I would agree. I'd asked for several years to have it explained to me and never really did comprehend it, which is not a lot of gray matter here, but the new one I definitely do understand, and I think of the accountability piece of it that hopefully we insert in with it this time will really be something that gets traction.
A move in the right direction. So before we get off into your technology responsibility, because I know you've been doing a lot
Yes,
outside of the session related to that, a lot of things going on. Everybody says we overtest in our public schools. Teachers complain about it, parents complain about it, members of the legislature. How come we can't change this?
I don't see why we can't change it, to be quite honest with you. I think 20, 30 years ago, we wanted some type of measurable metric, and what we got was testing. And being married to a school teacher, I mean, simply put, there's X amount of hours in a day. Do we spend our time trying to test and trying to move towards that needle, or do we spend our time teaching in front of our kids? I mean, that's what I've astronomized it down to with Cynthia, my wife, and, you know, she spends time with the kids. And you get a measurable output. You get a better student, a more well-rounded student when you do that.
Do you feel, are you suspicious, maybe that's the way to put it, that perhaps that there's a bit of manipulation going on in the testing? Do you suspect that, or do you have concerns about that maybe what we're getting isn't an accurate reflection?
Of course. I mean, anytime you got something, I am a big believer in data-driven analysis, but we've got to have objective, unbiased data.
Yeah.
And when you've got so much of it, so many chiefs in the room, so to speak, you can definitely have a situation where I think that the manipulation of the data could occur.
You may or may not have seen that in Chicago, one of the nation's largest public school district, they're literally instructing the teachers there to apply bias in their grading, which is doing a disservice to the students.
I don't doubt that at all. I firmly believe that exists in many places.
And I don't want to suggest that's going on in the state of Mississippi, but we can't possibly police everything, every district. What do we got? Over 120 districts, I think.
141 or 2.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Too many.
That's crazy. Too many. All right, so with respect to technology, no secret that this artificial intelligence, we could call it a revolution, a new renaissance, so to speak, which is incredible. Numerous benefits, but it's very powerful technology, and we certainly have the responsibility, I think, to some extent, of government of just making sure that it's not used for malicious or nefarious uses, and we need some laws and regulations around that, but we don't want to be so onerous that it hinders innovation.
Absolutely. That's what my counterpart in the House, we had joint hearings last week. We had 2 days, 10 really dynamic speakers on the subject of artificial intelligence. And we're trying to educate ourselves so when the time comes to create policy around that, we're ready to do that. I don't know that we're ready. Obviously, you've heard me say that my number one job is public safety.
Yeah.
And that extends to the internet and everything in that. You know, we've done the Walker-Montgomery bill, different things that protect our kids on the internet, and we will continue to be out in front doing that as time goes by. But as artificial intelligence comes, the conclusions, don't want to say we draw conclusions in that, but the information's kind of telling us soon but not yet.
Yeah.
As far as policy, I think a task force is something that's definitely in order to look at in the next session. We did the cybersecurity board of directors last year, and I've been intricately involved with that as that's been stood up, and it's been great. We've taken state resources and assets. We all get in the same room. All the smart people, with the exception of me, are in that room talking, and we're moving in the same direction. And I think with AI, we need to do that because a lot of people, as I've done this, it's forced me to engage more. And a couple of analogies I've used is the Chinese created gunpowder, which is great. Alfred Nobel created dynamite. That was a pretty good leap. But this is on the scale of going from dynamite to nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Where AI is taking us, and I'm not scared of it. I'm apprehensive. There are things, like you said, the negative and the bad players. We've got to weed that out and minimize that for sure. But it takes us to the next generation, I think, in this world. And as we go forward, 90 million job displacements is a number that I've heard, but 117 million new jobs. If you're one of the 90, it's scary. We live in a society that we have to spend a lifetime of educating ourselves. We don't get a K-12, 4-year, 6-year degree, and we're done. I've been in technology my whole life, so I've never quit learning, but I think that's a mindset that we as a whole have to have as we go forward. We don't have nearly as many blacksmiths as we used to, but we have a whole lot more mechanics than we ever had blacksmiths, and I think that's, if we look at it from that perspective and we have an open mind as we go forward and embrace this technology and try to learn. I did learn there are tons of resources that are out there. I think Mississippi leads the nation in trying to educate our workforce. Maine, Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, Colin Napier, doing a tremendous job with some funds we appropriated a few years ago to educate. And as a matter of fact, I'm now a freshly enrolled student at MGCCC on the coast, and their course, it's free. Somebody can get in touch with me. I can give you the contact information to get it about educating you on AI. As chair of technology, it's incumbent upon me to learn as much as I can.
We had Dr. Napier on the program not too long ago.
Great guy.
Very insightful and really all over this, a tremendous passion for this subject matter, and we're blessed to have him and the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, Maine, his organization that he leads here in the state of Mississippi, a tremendous resource to public and private sector, honestly.
Yes.
So I applaud you for signing up for that. But, the state of Tennessee, for example, passed legislation. It was either this past year, maybe it was the prior, of course, home to lots of recording artists and just other performing artists in the Nashville area. And they passed a law that essentially just bans the use of deep fake technology to emulate or replicate a person's voice and image and likeness and so forth. I mean, that's just common sense legislation there.
To pivot back to legislation, I think we'll probably look at next session. The deep fake stuff is something we will definitely, I think, look at for the obvious reasons. As AI advances, it has the ability to really create that in a way, but that intellectual asset needs to be protected. There's no doubt. And obviously, always data privacy. As we have these large language models out there and that data's out there, we've got to have people understand if they're sharing their information and protect that. And we've got to wrap our arms around that sooner than later as we go forward. So I think we'll see those sooner than later from a legislative perspective.
And I know, of course, in the state of Mississippi, the Information Technology Services Organization agency is charged with setting standards for the use of technology across the state public sector and public sector environment. Do a great job of that and administer a lot of the procurement process. What about their adoption of artificial intelligence to be used for use cases in the public sector? What's going on there? Anything?
I think they're out in front of it. They're vetting a lot of it and trying to think of these things as well. Dr. Ogeron is new. He's been back about 9 weeks. He and I have had countless meetings together. The lieutenant governor put me on the ITS board as a legislative advisor, which I think all that's appropriate, and that allows me to engage with what they're doing. I think they're taking a cautious approach as they're looking at it. And back to the task force idea I had a moment ago, I think if we can get a task force together where we've got ITS, probably leading the charge, to be honest. But the other resources and assets we have around the state sitting together, we can kind of collaborate and create policies as we go forward. And as we need to come in on top of it from a legislative perspective and codify it, we will. I mean, the reluctance is because, as I kind of said in our meetings, is, pun intended, this is a cloud that we can't quite get our arms around yet. We know it's coming.
Not well defined yet. It's evolving, but that's typical. You've been in the technology business. You know how that stuff, it starts out as Play-Doh until we start forming it up into something that has meaningful use.
And I believe God created us as creatures to innovate. He did it with us. And that's what we're doing, and more good will come than harm. But here we are to put the guardrails on and things of that nature when we need to.
I totally agree. If you can hang around, we can continue the discussion into the next segment, maybe touch on some of the energy issues you guys are working on. It's Senator Bart Williams from the local area here. We're in Starkville for the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. The Element Wealth Studio relocated for the day. Coming right back. Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're at the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. We're having an insightful conversation with Senator Bart Williams. So, Senator, when we had you on the final segment of the first hour with Representative Rob Robertson, you made a reference to something going on here locally with respect to the hospital.
Yes, sir.
Can you share that?
Well, last night there was a public hearing on the potential to sell the hospital is what it boiled down to. Just with at the end of the day, I think our community has decided that the time for the county to be in the hospital business has passed. And at the end of that meeting, the Board of Supervisors decided to employ Raymond James to do an RFP for it. And we're talking a little bit, we had this about 7 or 8 years ago, and the community sentiment's totally different. We know we want the best quality health care we can get, and we think the model that has been applied in the past is probably time to sunset that.
Yeah. I think that's a similar situation that it currently exists across the landscape of Mississippi, particularly in the rural areas. And I think we have to be honest, as Representative Robertson alluded to when we were talking to him, we have 3 million people, but they're widely dispersed.
Absolutely.
That makes things, especially running a hospital, those industries are more difficult.
Alabama's the same geographic area with 7 or 8 million people.
Yeah.
They have a Birmingham. We don't have a Birmingham and a Montgomery and those things. That's exactly right. And to say that the model's changed, I hope everybody understands we've got the best people that work in healthcare, our surgeons, our doctors, our nurses, our staff, everybody. But we understand that it is time for a change. And as we alluded to the consolidation that we did years ago, there are better days that we're experiencing today because the community was brave enough to embrace that, and the leadership of the community was. And I applaud the same folks now for doing that as we go forward down this journey. There's uncertainty, just like we're talking about AI. There's a fear factor with that. But we know if we do it right, we do it diligently, and we keep all the stakeholders involved, there's a brighter day for healthcare in Starkville and Octavia.
Well, we'll be on the lookout to see what develops out of that for sure.
Yes.
So let's turn our attention to energy as you serve as the vice chair of the Senate Energy Committee. What issues are you guys working on there?
Let me first say I think the Lieutenant Governor did a great job in pointing me to both of those because I'm terribly excited about both of them. I've been a sponge learning. I've traveled all over the nation this year on both behalves, predominantly technology, but also energy. A lot of things happening in energy. To segue in the AI thing, that takes a lot of power. If you do a Google search, it'll take a certain amount of energy. If you do an AI search on ChatGPT, it takes 17 times the amount of energy, just to give you perspective on why energy has become a hot topic.
Yep.
We've got Amazon coming in, and we're having energy hearings on October 1st, and I'm glad to be part of that as well, to really look at our energy situation in Mississippi. One of the hot topics out there are SMRs. Those are small modular reactors. They're nuclear reactors. And at the end of the day, I think they will be part of the energy creation in the future. I don't think they will be in the next few years. If you'll think of a nuclear reactor or a nuclear submarine or something of that scale, not the large 3 Mile Island things that everybody thinks about, that will be part of energy creation in 10, 15 years, I think, as we go forward, as that model kind of matures and becomes commercially viable.
And in fact, news that just released within the last 24 hours that 3 Mile Island is likely to be reinstated to provide power to Microsoft's data centers in the area. Bill Gates actually pushing for this. So he's, of course, a big green advocate, but seems to favor nuclear power. We got to get past the stigma against nuclear power.
As I see it, if you're about green energy, the best green energy producer is nuclear power.
The ultimate renewable.
It is exactly that, and as far as the carbon footprint to create it is nil compared to the other items that are out there. There are companies looking data centers to go alongside where, like, we've got a coal mine in Ackerman, Mississippi, and there's been conversations, maybe there will be a data center there that coal produces, that the power plant uses to produce energy. So that's another conversation that will happen as we go forward. The conclusion I'm drawing at this point, we got to have all of it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We got to have all of it. The renewables, the solar, the wind, the nuclear, the geo, all of that's got to be part of it. And I think we get smarter with it. We're more efficient with it. We're more conscious about the environmental pieces. But quite honestly, to hang up on the political extremes of this, going all the way one way or the other, is not healthy for our people.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the environment, literally speaking, for that as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But no doubt that this explosion of artificial intelligence and, of course, the underlying IT infrastructure, housing data centers, and their power footprint and demand is going to exceed our supply. Nuclear and SMRs in particular may be the only solution to that at this point.
I think they will. You know, cold fusion fixes a lot of things.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet. But a quick analysis I did a few weeks ago when I went to one of these seminars was the last 25 years we've grown at about a 2.2% grid growth per year due to just expansion and economic growth. In the next 25 years, that could be about 4%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's almost double the amount of growth for our grid to handle. So there are a lot of things, and our guys in the energy world, I think they're way out in front of this, and they're looking at this, and they're anticipating it. But that is a more of an exponential growth rate than we've had in the past, and we've got to be cognitive of that as we go forward. And as data centers come, we don't need to overload an area with data centers and the fact that we take all our energy. I think that's something we've got to be conscious of as well.
And there, some folks have expressed concerns about AWS coming to Madison County, as you're well aware, and how that might impact energy supply and just overall energy performance. But Entergy, the utility company there, is investing $2 billion in new capacity and transmission, production and transmission, more than sufficient to meet AWS's additional needs.
They are, and it keeps the reliability at that point. When something's so good that it doesn't fail, you expect it to be there. It's like cyber attacks. If it doesn't make the news, somebody's doing a good job.
That's exactly right.
Well, Entergy has a 3 gigawatt consumption at this point. They committed to 4, which they had the capacity for with these 2 data centers, but they've agreed to go up to 6 within 10 years. That's doubling their capacity. So, yes, they are out there and doing the things that they need to. And speaking to a lot of their people, as I said, they're out in front.
But we need to put, do we not, the folks' minds at ease that this actually is going to be a positive with respect to energy supply and availability, not a negative.
Absolutely it is. I think innovation, when it's pushed and it's forced, we end up with bigger, better products on the other side of it, more efficient products, and I think that will definitely come from this.
Yeah, and this turns out to be a key factor when these companies make their decisions as to where to locate, and we want more in Mississippi, not less.
A lot of energy that's affordable, our people, and we've got another secret weapon called dark fiber that's running through our state.
No doubt.
There. The AWS decision was announced a couple of weeks later. Some of the people from Google were at the Capitol, and I had a chance to sit with them, and they made the comment. They said, caught us completely off guard, the industry. Mississippi was not on our radar, but now they are. Mississippi is a technology destination. I've been guilty of saying we want to be. We are a technology destination. It's our job to tell that story, I think. As I mentioned earlier, from a workforce standpoint, we're even looking at things going down to elementary school with coding and things of that nature. That entire line, we've got to do what we can from the legislature to put those things in place to educate our workforce at all levels. These are not people, all of them with computer engineering degrees. We'll have someone that gets their certificate that can work in this space, in this area. I think we're doing a great job of that. The physical place that we sit between Dallas and Atlanta, right there where we are, you know, from a dark fiber perspective, it's great. And I say it's our secret weapon. The world needs to know we're number 1 in hospitality. Our people are the best in the nation. Yeah,
no doubt. And something else that was key in Amazon's decision, as you well know, is a friendly business climate in Mississippi and a regulatory environment that's not as onerous. We don't have all the red tape that so many other states do.
I've had opportunity to talk to leadership from several places with some of these economic development projects. The top 2 things are always the same: speed to market and our people.
Absolutely. And speed to market, of course, is directly related to that regulatory framework, and we've done a good job there.
I think we have. You know, simply put, I know it's a little more complicated than this, but are you going to follow our laws? Then come on. You know, we're going to make it safe, and we want you here.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's a win-win, a positive thing. Anything else that you're going to be working on as we approach the new 2025 session?
Well, those 2 spaces we talked about are kind of my wheelhouse, where I'm spending most of my time. But as you said, I'm a senator. I have responsibility for everything. I try to stay in tune. Next week, we're going to have workforce participation hearings just to kind of see if there are things we can do. Senator Sparks chairs that, so I'm looking forward to hearing what we can there. That'll be an interesting thing to be part of.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I'm suspicious of the data there. I don't have a lot of confidence in the way the federal government calculates that. I'd like to see the state maybe take up something to compute their own figures.
I don't disagree with that statement, because last year I was trying to understand how we calculate that, and I still couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I think there are simpler ways to do things than we do sometimes.
It's the Census Bureau calling around and asking 3 simple questions. And Senator Williams, I've never found a person that's ever been called. You know anybody that's ever been called?
I've never been called.
No, I hadn't found a person. I challenge you to ask your colleagues there on the phone.
I'll do
Anybody
that.
here ever been called?
I'll do that.
And ask their constituents, because I think they're just making it up. We appreciate you coming on, though. Senator Bart Williams represents District 15 here in the local area, Oktibbeha, Winston, and counties. And is that just it? Oktibbeha, Winston?
Oktibbeha, Webster, Choctaw, and Montgomery.
Okay, it all changed. I got robbed. Sorry,
That's
I read
okay.
it wrong.
That's all right.
Sorry. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I'm honored to be here in Hale State.
Thanks.